If you enjoy our podcast, please like and subscribe and consider becoming a digital subscriber to the Albuquerque Journal to help us bring you more content like this. You can find this episode and all of our podcasts on the Albuquerque Journal website, abqjournal.com, as well as YouTube, iTunes, and Spotify. See the show notes for a discount code on a digital subscription. Thank you for supporting the Albuquerque Journal, New Mexico's leading news.
Hello and welcome to another episode of What's Bugging You. I'm your host, Chesley Elkins. This is my co-host here.
Yeah, I'm Brian Victor, and we are pleased to be joined here again with Mike Swanson. Before we get started, we'd like to hear from our sponsors.
Preventive pest control, taking care of the pests you see and the ones you don't see. Preventive pest control. It's as simple as that.
Welcome again, Mike.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I guess we need to change the emblem up there for 3 people on that instead of just 2 because you're big.
I like my guest status.
Yeah. I guess there's not as much pressure.
Leaves me out.
Not as much pressure on you if you're the guest, right? So it is getting colder outside. We just finished Bloom Fiesta, and which was actually pretty warm for Bloom Fiesta.
Right.
It was, and a successful one too. The balloons looked great up there. We got that new balloon.
Yeah,
it was pretty. It was a good week.
Yeah. We had 2 balloons out there, but now this past week, it's been getting a lot cooler. Mm-hmm. So with the cold, the 2 things happen. Usually the bug activity slows down a little bit, which is nice. But on the opposite of that, the rodent activity increases quite a bit.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, mostly mouse activity is probably going to go up 300-400% in this next month. At least that's been our experience.
Yeah. Well, what are some things you think we should be on the lookout for? I guess
Well, we get more calls for mice because they're trying to get inside, right? Because they need a warm place to spend the winters. So the best thing you can do is seal up your house so they can't get inside in the first place. That's what we always recommend to people. So what are the obvious ways? Like people have gaps under the doors in their garage. That's a huge one that we have to deal with all the time. So you can go to Home Depot. They're kind of expensive, but they work. Garage door seals that you put on, kind of retrofit your garage door with side seals and a bottom seal, and it keeps the mice from being able to chew under and get inside there. Of course, you can call a company like Preventive to come do it as well. We have a lot of experience with that. But just sealing up the building, I mean, we can never stress that enough.
Yeah, a lot of people don't understand is those suckers climb, and they'll just see look around their house and see little holes and towards the bottom of the the wall or something. And no, man, they get on the roof, they'll get up under, they'll climb right up those sides, and they'll hang upside down even and get in little holes and crevices. And so you got to look all around your house. And we tell people pretty much anything the size of your pinky, they can get in, right? So.
That's exactly right. Yeah, they'll go up a stucco wall like it's a ladder. They just zoom right up it with no problem at all.
Yeah, people that own pets are pretty susceptible to for a few reasons. If they've got pet doors that their dogs and cats go in and out of, so a lot of times those don't close up well enough to keep the mice out, and then just pet food around as well is going to be an attractant for them.
Have you seen those dog doors they get, or the pet doors where they have a little RFID chip they put on the collar for the animal so it won't open unless they get close, kind of like a Star Trek door or something?
I have one, and my dog can't figure it out.
The mice are probably smart enough to figure it out.
They're going to steal the collar and bring it out of the house.
It's like, is that a dog or is that like 5 mice in a dog suit? I don't know.
Yeah. So we still have to take the dog in and out. We can't figure it out.
That's funny. Yeah, those pet doors, they fail so quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then things people don't think about, like your dryer vents or the bathroom vent, they'll get in that way. That's a big one. Gaps up like you were talking about in the roof and the canales, those are often poorly constructed in the first place, and so there's gaps for the mice to get up in there as well. So it's not just the obvious stuff that you just kind of do a tour around the outside of your house and looking. You've got to really get kind of sort of invasive in your own house and looking for those little tiny openings where they get in, especially if you have a crawl space.
Yeah, and I know here in the Albuquerque area, there's generally only a couple of different mice types you deal with on the most part, right? One, the house mouse and the deer mouse. I know people the deer mouse gets a little more scary because of the hantavirus back in the 90s, whatever it was, and Four Corners. But
and still this last year in Santa Fe with Gene Hackman's wife.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Brought it back into the news quite a bit.
Yeah, but I think there's cases pretty much every year still.
Yeah, I think they have a little better if they catch it early enough. I think you can figure out how to treat it right. But yeah, I live in a rancho, and I live kind of next to an open space, and there's deer mice up there. Like almost pretty much most mice I catch around my house are deer mice.
Yeah, if you're anywhere on the outskirt of town of Rio Rancho or Albuquerque, the probability you're going to have deer mice is exponentially higher the closer you are to sort of like the border of the civilization, so to speak.
So are we worried more about a deer mouse versus a house mouse?
I would be. I mean, the house mouse is everywhere where humans live across the entire world. I think we even have them in Antarctica, and they have been living side by side with humans for a very long time. So they're tricky, but generally they're pretty easy to get rid of. Like you just set a bunch of traps, and you can get rid of a house mouse infestation pretty easily. Deer mice are trickier because, like you described, you've got a constant population of them outside that are always trying to get in, And so it's not like you get one or two that make their way into your house and then they set up a family and like, well, now we have to trap for mice and get rid of them. It's a one and done thing. And with the deer mice, depending on where you live, it's going to be something you're always dealing with. And so that's where you really have to think more about the avoidance and, keeping them from getting in the house in the first place, rather than trying to have a strategy of, well, I've got a house mouse or whatever mouse, I'm going to set some traps and get rid of it. Well, that's trickier when next week they're going to try to get back in that same hole.
Yeah, and so funny thing is, like, as a kid, I spent a lot of time out in the mesa, just out at nighttime with my friends, and we'd always see these little mice crossing the road all the time at nighttime. I didn't know what they were, but now I imagine, pretty sure they were the deer mice, just because of coloring of them and stuff, right? And I mean, do you want to talk a little bit about that, like how you can tell the difference between a house mouse and a deer mouse?
Yeah, sure. So the house mouse is what you think of like Jerry from Tom and Jerry. That little gray, they're almost always kind of a gray or a lightish color, and they're much smaller than the deer mice, which are native to New Mexico, whereas the house mouse is not. It's introduced from across the ocean. However, the deer mice have been, they're native to North America, and they are larger. And generally speaking, they're going to have a brown back and a white belly, a lot like a deer, which is kind of where they get the name. They also have a striped tail, which is another way you can tell. But most of the time, they're significantly larger than the house mouse. But once you see the two of them side by side, the difference is stark. Absolutely. And of course, then the other third one we're dealing with is the packrat, which is also native. Unlike if you lived in a big city, especially on the East Coast, where we deal with Norway rats and roof rats and brown rats, those are also introduced species, whereas the packrat, or also known as wood rat here in New Mexico, is a native species as well. And they look a lot like a rat. They're much larger than a mouse.
Long tail,
big ears, kind of like Mickey Mouse. And you'll find them all over the scrub and prairie around Albuquerque and Rio Rancho.
So do we have those other types of rats here as well, the roof rats and Norway rats, intermittently, or?
So I have never seen one, and I've looked for them, especially in the prototypical places you think you might find them, like downtown Albuquerque, for example. And we've had customers that swear they've seen them, but I have not. I have seen pack rats behaving like roof rats or Norway rats, but I have not personally ever seen a rat that's not a pack rat in Albuquerque or Rio Rancho. Yeah, that doesn't mean they're not here, though. That's just my experience.
I recently went to New York for my first time, and I don't think I've ever really seen a rat until like, holy cow, man! They're really just like you see on TV. They're everywhere. You go to the subway, there's like thousands of them just down there. It's just living.
By, hey, I'm walking here. Get out of my way.
Yeah, seriously. Like I was like, really? You gotta do something about it? Just everywhere, and no one cares. They're just walking around people. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I've seen video of that, and that is definitely unlike anything we've seen here in the desert Southwest.
Yeah. So I believe I've heard some about the pack rats here we have are fairly intelligent. Is that like, you expound on that a little bit? Like,
yeah, absolutely. So that's when I do trainings for teaching the technicians what to do for mice. That's the biggest thing that I try to get across to them, because pest management is all about understanding the behavior and the biology of the pests that you're trying to resist or eliminate or whatever. And you have to use their behaviors to your advantage. And so mice are relatively simple and unintelligent as far as the spectrum of our understanding goes. And so their behavior is predictable and they're relatively easy to trap, whereas rats are much more intelligent and they are much more cautious when it comes to new things in their environment. So often what we'll have to do is set out a rat trap with bait on it, peanut butter or whatever, but not set the trap and just let the rats kind of get used to it for a week or two and then come back out and rebait it and then set it. And that will increase the likelihood that you'll catch them. With mice, you don't have to do that at all. Rats are also much more, they have a bigger swath and they'll kind of explore a bigger area. Whereas mice, once they find a place where they're comfortable and they have a food source, they'll stay within a 20-foot range really and not have to leave at all. So for that reason, rats are much more difficult to get rid of. The good news is you just don't see them in the same numbers that you see mice in. You know, mice are much more readily infesting inside people's homes, whereas the rats generally they stay out to outbuildings underneath your deck, you know, in a shed, things like that. They just don't want to be around people.
Is it true like pack rats? They kind of collect things, or they're kind of curious, and they'll see random little toys, shiny things in the yard, or keys or something, and take them. And
yeah, they do. The one that I find the most annoying is that they tend to grab pieces of cholla and other cactus, and they take that with them. So you're in a crawl space, you know, and all you have is a headlamp, and you're crawling on your arms or your knees, and the next thing you know, you put your elbow into a big piece of cholla underneath somebody's house, and you're like, what the heck is that doing here?
do they do that? I was under the impression they do that almost for protection. They kind of put it around their home, or is it more they just they like it?
That's a great question. I don't know.
Because I see cholla. That's why I used to actually, when I used to, you know, be in the field, you'd actually find them. You know, that's how you found their nest. They'd be surrounded by cholla.
Yeah, kind of like the clownfish and the sea anemones just hanging out for protection.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I guess the clown rat.
Yeah.
So we've talked some about like the trapping and, you know, sealing places up, exclusions. You know, as professionals, sometimes it becomes necessary for us to deploy some rodenticides, some bait for those. Let's maybe talk a little bit about the pros and cons of that.
Yeah. So the big thing is, when you're dealing with bait that's designed to kill mice, you're dealing with a poison that's designed to kill mammals, right? When you break it down. And so you do have to have some caution. And so you don't want to just go to the store and buy whatever rat poison or, you know, bait that you can for mice that you can just throw it in your yard or in your house and not think twice about it. It's going to take some caution, and I think some to be judicious about it. So one of the things that people worry about is what happens if you have a mouse that eats rat poison or, you know, mouse poison, and then that gets eaten by, you know, like a cat or something. Right. So that secondary poisoning is not really a big issue because the mice, there's such a small amount of the active ingredient in those poisons. While it is deadly for the mice, a cat would have to eat tons of mice to get sick. They just don't have enough that lingers in their body. So that's one of the things people ask us about a lot, and it's really not a major concern. We do want to worry about dogs getting into the bait stations and eating the bait, and that's a bigger thing. The good news is the way that the poison works is it inhibits the recycling of vitamin K in the mouse's body, and then over time, that's required for blood coagulation, and over time they'll just have their blood will get too thin and they'll kill them. You can then just give some, like if a dog eats that, you can just give them a big dose of vitamin K and it reverses all those symptoms, and so they're fine. So there's an easy, quick antidote for it, so it's not that big of a deal.
Right. And I've heard quite a few myths regarding rodenticides too, and I think sometimes these might have been put out to help people feel better about using them or something. Like, for example, I've heard that, you know, mice that eat the rodenticide, they'll get really thirsty and they'll head outside of your house, go outside of your house to find a water source, so you don't have to worry about them dying in your house.
Oh, wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah. And like again, I think some of these were made to help people feel better about using them, maybe in ways that they should think a lot more about in the first place.
Conjures images of mice running outside, and then you see like the little mouse angel with the heart just floating up.
Right. No, so that's another. I would say that's definitely one of the cons of them. If you already have an active infestation and you're not controlling the mice coming inside your house, and you put a bunch of bait out, you're likely to have a lot of dead mice in your house that don't smell really pleasant.
Yeah, and the main thing is that once they find a food source and they're inside, they're going to stay inside.
Right.
So that's why one of the main reasons that we don't advocate putting bait inside is for that exact reason.
Right.
Have you heard by chance? I heard somewhere that WD-40 helps get rid of mice. So I tried it actually.
Oh, yeah. What happened?
They stopped squeaking.
I love that so much.
It didn't work though. It didn't work.
But it didn't get rid of them? No. You just can't hear them now?
Yeah. Squeak's gone.
Yeah. What's the other joke? There are a couple of mice that are eating a roll of film, and one looks at the other and says, "I like the book better."
I don't know if the younger kids would understand what roll film again. You don't understand that joke. Now I think it's like they still do film, I guess, right?
Okay, it was eating a memory stick. How about that?
Memory card.
And that's the thing about mice, right? Is that's one of the reasons that people, we think about like the ick factor of mice and rats, mice in particular in Albuquerque. Like, I don't want to have this gross vermin running around the house. But the biggest concern, at least in Albuquerque and what I've dealt with over the time, is property damage. And people really don't think about that. But mice, packrats and deer mice in particular, will get up into cars that are parked over long term, and they wreak havoc chewing on the wires. So mice and rats, their teeth never stop growing, their front teeth. Like most rodents are like that. And they're constantly chewing on things. They'll chew on concrete, wood, anything that they want, just gnaw on things. And so they can cause damage. We've had customers have significant damage to their air conditioning units in their attics, to cars that are parked outside of their house. Not to mention, plumbing lines or getting into like washers and dryers, that sort of thing. So it's a pretty significant issue. So that's, I would say, something to really think about. Not so much, are you worried about a mouse being gross and getting in your house? Of course, there are public health issues, but they're going to be causing you a lot of money in terms of property damage.
On that show, Narcos, the rodents were responsible for chewing up quite a bit of cash.
Were they?
Right? Yeah.
Wasn't that also on one of the first Bad Boys? The movie Bad Boys, wasn't that? I think so. Was it? Yeah. It was like the whole. They went in as him and Martin Lawrence pretend like they were exterminators, went in because all the cash was getting eaten by the rats or something like that.
Interesting.
Right? So,
yeah. Why don't we ever get those calls?
Maybe we do.
Tip yourself on the way out.
We just don't talk about it.
Right.
Yeah, and speaking of the public health stuff, right? So we talk about the hantavirus, and one thing that mice have been always, I think, ever since I was a kid, you always hear about the Black Death in Europe and the plague that was responsible for killing something like a third or whatever of the population of Europe. And I always heard it was because the rats were, just everywhere and transferring the fleas to the people, and that's how they were spreading the Black Plague. And I was just reading an article about it earlier where what they found is actually the rats have gotten a bad rap, and that rat fleas generally do not jump from rats to humans readily at all, and that it's much more likely it was human fleas and body lice. So people were sharing the plague with each other much more than it was the rats that were coming into town and infecting everybody, which I think is interesting.
Yeah, I'd heard that, people got afraid of cats because of witchcraft or whatever, and then the mice ran rampant, and that was the issue. So, but they're revising that now.
Yeah, evidently not. The evidence is pointing towards we're just gross. So, yeah, hygiene is better than getting rid of rats when it comes to stopping the plague in metropolitan environments.
wash your hands.
Yeah, wash your hands, wash your body.
Take a shower.
So, let's talk about some famous mice in history. What's your most famous or your favorite mouse ever, Mike?
Well, I will tell you, I was looking this up, and can you guess who the number one is favorite mouse in pop culture based on the internet?
Not Mickey Mouse.
Mickey Mouse comes in a solid number 2.
Number 1.
Minnie?
Fievel?
Fievel is not even in the top 10, but Jerry. Jerry of Tom and Jerry fame is the favorite mouse, according to this internet page. I would say my favorite is Pinky and the Brain. I love them. I'm always a big Animaniacs fan.
I didn't even realize it was a mouse.
Yeah, well, I think they're probably lab rats.
They're lab rats.
I don't watch that show very often.
Close enough.
How about you, Brian? What's your favorite?
Oh man, we were talking earlier. I used to read as a kid the Ralph S. Mouse books. What was it called? Those books?
Mouse and the Motorcycle.
Mouse and the Motorcycle. So maybe that one. We were rats. You got Ratatouille. I don't know the name of that freaking thing, but I can't remember his name. But
what is his name? I don't even think I've seen that movie.
Remy.
Remy.
Was it Remy?
Yes, Remy. He's the mastermind controlling the chef.
And I don't know if this is just sexism at work, but Mickey's number 2 and Minnie's all the way down at number 6. What does that tell you about us?
Well, Steamboat Willie.
Yeah. I guess he's been around longer, right? He's Minnie was introduced later on. Yeah, Stuart Little's number 5. So
Stuart Little.
Yep. So there are a lot of mice out there in our culture. Yeah, I would say that of all of them, I think the brain is the one that I would least like to encounter. It has the highest probability of ruining your day. What was that? Have you ever seen that episode where he decided to be a country music star and try to fulfill that dream?
I don't think I've ever seen an episode. I just know who they are. I don't see
You got to watch them. They hold up pretty well.
Yeah.
I think so.
That sounds like a good watch.
I think it'd be up your alley.
What about the mice in Cinderella?
Yeah, that's right.
Gus. Was that a rat or a mouse? That was a mouse, right? Old Gus.
I think it was a little house mouse, a little gray house mouse.
Gus. Maybe Gus is my favorite. Little Gus.
Yeah, he's a helpful little fellow. Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting to think about why mice are so popular in pop culture. You know, why are they anthropomorphized so much? And I mean, they are kind of cute when you get past it. I mean, if you look up closely, if you're around like live actual mice, they kind of have, I don't know, their eyes seem kind of, I don't know if I'm getting in trouble for saying they seem kind of vacant. You know, it's kind of like looking at a reptile's eyes. You know, there's not a lot going on.
No soul, you're saying?
I don't know. I want to get that deep into it, but from a distance, they're kind of adorable. They're little twitching noses, you know, and they're tiny and furry.
Are known for not very, very good vision anyways. So
yeah, that's right.
So
yeah, that's why, that's one of the things we use to our advantage, you know, when we're trying to trap them is putting the traps up into things that they're going to encounter because they usually navigate using body hairs more than eyesight.
Isn't 3 blind mice towards the umpire, baseball umpires, right? 'Cause they can never make the right calls. Is that where the term 3 blind mice came from?
I don't know, but that sounds accurate.
I think so.
I think it might have actually been a political thing when that first
I
came
thought it
out,
was
some sort of
I thought it was a
satire.
baseball thing.
Heard something about that. I'd have to research it and know for sure, but I think it was directed towards some sort of political figures.
But they have a very good sense of smell, right? And they can feel their whiskers, and that's how they kind of find their way around.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Yeah, their eyesight's not very keen. It's not like like a raptor or something.
Yeah, they're kind of interesting too. Is if you go to a house that's had a pretty bad infestation for a long time, you'll see trails up the side of the wall or next to the wall from their what they call it?
Sebum. Yeah.
From their oils and stuff from their bodies.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we look for when we're doing the assessments of homes is you can see, you know, like just a trail of kind of grime on the side of the house where the mice are getting in from all that body, contact with the sides of their bodies.
And I remember someone telling me, I can't remember the number, but you can kind of tell if you have, you know, one rodent or several rodent mice is by the number of droppings you're seeing. And I think because like one rodent will kind of probably have 10 to 20 droppings a day, right? Is what it is. And then
I don't know. It could be more than that. They poop everywhere. And they are non-judgmental about where they poop.
They go everywhere. Yeah.
And they're kind of constantly urinating too, right? So their trail will be just...
Yeah, it's pretty disgusting.
Yeah. Things we don't like about them, for sure.
Yeah, and that's where they become a health hazard because that's how the viruses get and some of the bacteria get transmitted is through their constant excreting. Yeah.
Anything good, redeemable about mice? What part do they play in our ecosystem?
Well, that's key, right? They are a fundamental, they're a foundational, what do you call it? A keystone species, I think is the biological term for, at least certainly for the desert Southwest. And I can't speak for other environments, but think about all the animals that rely on mice and just a big population of mice. We talked about the birds, we have snakes that are native to central New Mexico. I've seen the roadrunner eat more than one mouse, that's for sure.
Right.
And so it's kind of like, you know, the krill in the ocean, I always like to say, you know, they're the thing that everything else relies upon for eating.
That kind of reminds me of, I think, like we have a snake expert, a herpetologist works for us, and people sometimes complain they have snakes. It's like, well, probably because you have mice, you know, because mice are their primary food source, right? And
we've never dealt with a snake issue that was not coexisting with the big rodent issue.
They're there. That's their food source. They're going to be there too. And then I'll tell you one thing doesn't work though. I mean, I grew up with cats that freaking took care of mice, but I've also had cats that let mice walk all over them and didn't care. So I don't know if a lot of people say, "Let's get a cat." I think it's very rarely the answer, right? But
yeah. The other thing that stinks is, maybe literally, there are a lot of repellents on the market and I'm not aware of a single one that's effective for mice. There's some that come in little packets you can get, and it's like a mix of like citronella and clove oil, things like that, peppermint, and people swear by them because they don't see any mice after they put them down. But that's kind of correlation, not necessarily causation. But I have seen a lot of those that have rodent droppings on top of them. So
Yeah, same thing. I've heard of the people swear by those. Like you plug in, like it makes a little supersonic noise or something. I don't know what they call it. And I was like, there's no way that works. But
it would be awesome if they did work.
Yeah,
but I guarantee you they do not. Yeah. There is no evidence.
Well,
to
my
suggest
mother-in-law
that
swears by it.
Yeah, there's no clinical evidence that shows that those work. It would be cool if they did. That's for sure. Yeah, and then also people use glue boards sometimes, and we always recommend against that. You can get a package of a little tray with glue in it for catching mice, and sure, you'll maybe catch a mouse, but I have seen some kind of really unfortunate aftermath of mice that get caught in there because it doesn't kill them, it just traps them, and so they sometimes just die of starvation or hunger, and sometimes they kind of mutilate themselves to get off of the trap, and it's really rough. Or they'll drag the trap across the room. And
the most humane is just a snap trap.
Yeah, snap trap. Yeah, they're cheap. They're
right
very
away.
effective, and that's exactly right. It's instant kill, and I think that's absolutely the most humane way to do it.
Well, thank you, Mike, for joining us
Yeah,
and
thanks, Mike.
enlightening us about all things rodents today. Thank you, Brian, for your co-hosting duties here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Halloween's coming up. Maybe we should have dressed up as mice or something. Put a little nice suit on or something.
Maybe I will.
So, hope y'all can join us next time on What's Bugging You.